So I want to talk for a minute about the difference between syncretistic religion and synergistic religion. They both sound similar and they might appear to do similar things, but I'm very strongly looking for synergistic and not syncretistic. So what is syncretistic? So if any of you guys ever watched the movie Dune or read the books, the series Dune, so we have this concept called the Orange Catholic Bible. The idea is orange and Catholic are opposites because orange is the color of Protestants in Ireland at the time. And the idea is that at some point in the future, humans got together and merged their religions. So there was no longer Catholics and Protestants. There was just one version of Christianity. In reality, in Dune, he pictures this idea that all of the world's religions on earth got together and they brought all their religious concepts and they sort of mixed it up together, chopped it up, put it together in one thing, and that became the human Bible. And that became traditional religion. Now, the idea there is this vague sense that all religions more or less can say the same thing, and if we just shave down the rough edges here and there, we can get one basic religious presentation. So, if you go back to ancient times, there was actually some basic truth to this approach in the sense of how polytheistic religions thought of each other. So, for instance, we know that the Greek Zeus and the Roman Jupiter was more or less the same god. And it goes down the line with Greek and Roman gods, more or less. There's a storm god, and there's a sun god, and there's a goddess of love, etc., etc. And the idea being that as you travel and you want to find what the local gods, who the local gods were, you would sort of round it off to which is the god that you generally worship in your own place, and you find the closest match. Sometimes that worked well, like what we see with the Greeks and the Romans. Sometimes it worked terribly. So a classic example of that is the Semites, from Canaan, Israel, whatever, that moved down into Egypt in the ancient period, pre-Israelite period. They were looking for the chief of their own pantheon. The chief of their pantheon, the Canaanite pantheon, was a god named Adad. Adad is the storm god. In the Bible, if you're Bible readers, you probably know him as Baal. Baal just means the master, because he was the head god. Just like Jews refer to YHWH to Yahweh as Adonai, the Lord, right? So they refer to Adon as the master. And he was the storm god. And when they're in Egypt, they were looking for the storm god. And the storm god in Egypt is Seth. However, he's not the storm god for rain, as rain is not something that happens in Egypt. They get their water from the Nile, and the rain and the snow is down in Ethiopia. He's sandstorms. So he's the god of chaos and often death, not death like the underworld, but like destruction. And that became an interesting phenomena that the Semites specifically became Seth worshippers because they identified him as the Egyptian version of Baal. Now, putting aside that little picket point, the idea is that syncretistic religion is an attempt to make religions line up. Now, in modern times, you could have that type of idea, and the idea then would be to flatten religion, right? To say like, oh, Jesus is the same thing as, let's say, Buddha, is the same thing as Mohammed, is the same thing as Confucius, etc., etc., etc. That is not what I'm going for in Prisma. While it's true that there's much overlap between divine images in different religions, and there's a lot of overlap between practices, and we're and we're going to look at such things. On the flip, I think it's very important that each religion retains its own color, its own perspective, its own language, its own rituals, its own texts, its own themes, its own worldview. The reason I like the idea of a prism, when I came up with the idea of Prisma, is because I'm not looking to bring all the colors together and create the white light, right? The white light of the sunlight is all the different colors mixed up as one thing. What I want to do is the opposite. I want to look at the rainbow. I want to look at all the different shades. And yes, some of it will be comparing and seeing what is parallel. Some of it is going to be seeing the difference. And sometimes the differences are not about essential differences. Not every difference has to be a strong theological or philosophical or ethical dichotomy or disagreement. Sometimes it's just about the flavor and the coloring and the way it hits you. Different rituals, different perspectives, different languages can hit people in different ways and can speak to different parts of our hearts and our souls. And I think that that is very important. So in synergistic religion, my idea is that when you have access to all the different forms of religious wisdom, and you can compare them and think about them and connect to them, and they work together in a complementary way, you have the full power of the individuality of religion, but without the negative of the competition. I am not looking to create a syncretistic, one religion fits all kind of thing where we all do the same thing. So that is an important distinction. The podcast and Prisma and all that, we're going to be dealing with synergistic and not syncretistic religion.